big bay doors. Got to make sure we don't have all that extra noise coming from outside. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Okay, that looks a little better, right? Still tooling with the lighting after having to. You have to replace one studio light. You got to reposition all of them because nothing. It's a thing. So good morning. And I see the no shit, the horde, the BFM fam is in there this morning. I see Patrick, Steve, and Megan. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right. This morning, we are talking about something near and dear to my heart, which is the VA. Now, when I say near and dear to my heart, let me be clear about the VA, right? I know we got a lot of veterans out there, and a lot of veterans have had shall we say, mixed results from the VA, right? Not everybody has a great experience. The VA is kind of like, if you know what you're walking into, if you walk in with the right expectations and deal with it correctly, the VA can be a great thing. It really can. Yeah, Uncle Steve, thanks for the comment, and thank you so much for that light. You see there's the kit sitting right there. I want to talk to you later about that light kit because it's actually a really cool. It's a pretty slick little device, but you know, I digress. So if you're a veteran, you have to deal with the VA. Let me go ahead and get a few things out there for you so that you know what you're expecting. The VA does a great job eventually, right? There have been some scandals with some specific VA hospitals where problems arose. Some of them related to DEI and just not hiring the most qualified people because they're trying to make government racial quotas and whatnot. But good morning, boys. Megan says the boys say good morning. Good morning, Lincoln and Emerson. And Jason, good morning, brother. Hope to see you this afternoon, this evening at soccer practice. But if you walk into the VA knowing what to expect, and you act accordingly, you can have a great experience. Personally, I've had several surgeries at the VA. I had to have we'll say I had to have a lower surgery on my lower back, without getting into the gruesome details there. I also had to have surgery on both my ears. And I will get a little more gruesome there. I mean, the kind of surgery where they sliced my ear off the side of my head, and I had to have it on both ears. They peel the side of your face off, do the work, and then staple it back on. Those of you who've watched the show consistently for a long time, you may remember me showing up on the show one morning with a big plastic cup full of bloody rags strapped to the side of my face. But I had to have both of my eardrums basically completely reconstructed, and the VA hooked me up with my hearing aids, which I am not speaking hyperbolically when I say those things probably saved my marriage. Even today, I mean, I'm 6-7 years into having had the hearing aids and been using them all the time, except when I'm asleep or when I'm in the studio with the headphones on. And it's still shocking to me when I take my hearing aids out. My hearing loss is severe enough that when I take my hearing aids out, I actually experience a physical sensation like what most of you would recognize as the sensation of putting earplugs, like hearing protection, in. So the VA does a good job eventually, right? So like with my back surgery, I had to wait once I was scheduled. Once we identified the problem and began the process, it took months and months, almost a year, to get scheduled. And then once I got scheduled, I was scheduled like 6 months out by the time I actually could get the surgery. So it's a long process. Now, at the same time, they have emergency rooms. The VA itself has emergency rooms, and as a veteran, you have access to, you can use a civilian emergency room. Last year, I had to go to the emergency room. I've talked about this a little bit. I came down with a case of severe pneumonia, and just the way things are kind of organized in Augusta, where I went, the main VA facility doesn't have an emergency room, but they do have one, like 4 blocks down the street. And somebody at an info desk told me to go there. And then it turns out that veterans emergency room is directly across the street from a civilian one. And in the dark, in the wee hours of the morning, and in rough shape because of how sick I was, I didn't even bother to look at the sign. I just walked into the one that said emergency room, and the lady said, "Oh no, well this isn't the VA, but you're going to get over there. They're going to be busy, and they're going to tell you to come over here. So I'll just take care of you, honey." And they did. They took great care of me, and that was covered by my veteran status. So you gotta make sure that you dot your T's and cross your I's, but they do a good job when they get around to it. And of course, the when they get around to it, that's part of what Doge is looking at, and part of what Doug Collins is going to be looking at is the VA, because it's a government program, has been staffed with a lot of bloat. There's an extraordinarily unnecessary amount of additional administrative positions, most of which are essentially communist make work put there for DEI hires. If we can slash a lot of that out, then the whole thing will become much more efficient. Now, I say all that to say, I want to set you up to understand the VA. And for those of you who are veterans, if you have not gone through the process of getting your veterans your disability rating, let me explain something to you guys, because I struggled with this when I first got out. And if I'm being perfectly honest, it was Obama that lit a fire under my ass to really chase my VA benefits. I'm a big, strong man, capable, smart. I don't need no welfare handout. Get that shit out of your head. Your veterans benefits are something that is part of the compensation package that you signed when you agreed to enlist, right? That's not a welfare check. They broke it. They bought it. The money that you get as a disabled veteran is supposed to make up the gap in the difference between the kind of work that you used to do and the kind of work that you can now do. But Aaron, I'm not gonna talk about VA real estate loans on this show. I'm just doing a quick overview before I get into the real story about the terrorists attacking the VA, because that shit. Damn, you broke my train of thought, Aaron. Oh, so when I say Obama's the one that lit the fire under my ass, because of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, the rules have changed. Now, I say the rules have changed. Obviously, it's been 15 years now since Obamacare went into effect, but you need to understand what that means for you if you're a veteran. It means that you can't buy private insurance. You can. You can technically, but you can't get subsidized for it. And all of the insurance, all the private insurance that's out there right now is operating on the expectation that there's a government subsidy involved. So if you're a veteran and you want to get private insurance, you're going to pay between 4 and 10 times more for that private insurance than a civilian would, because they want to force you to use the VA. So you need to get that rating taken care of if you haven't already. Right? A little bit of money is nice, right? I get a little bit of money, but I still go out and work. I still have to make a living. I still have to pay the mortgage, feed the babies. I have 4 kids, and they want to eat every damn day, right? So a little bit of money is nice, but you need to be able to go to the doctor. And Obamacare doesn't want to let you do that unless you get your shit squared away with the VA. Now, that's probably a little more time than I meant to spend on that. I've got a video that I want to share with you guys, and I want to talk about what they're discussing in depth. The video is it got shared by Libs of TikTok, and it's leftist Antifa activists planning to stage sit-in protests at VA clinics, and you'll see they're going to explain what their objective is, and the objective is to cause violence, right? They're what they want is to cause violence at VA hospitals, right? And I'll get into that a little more in just a minute. But I want you guys to understand this is, we're talking Antifa. So it may only be a loose organization vis-a-vis the moon is a harsh mistress, Robert A. Heinlein, basically the blueprint for the conduct of an insurgency against a hostile foreign government. As colonists who were overseen by a hostile foreign entity. It's complex, it's interesting, but in the context of what's happening in the world today, there is a massive conspiracy of zeitgeist, essentially. So we're seeing something happen in the world right now, in the United States right now, where there is some conspiracy, some coordination behind the scenes somewhere, but the dark powers, the dark cabal behind the scenes are very cleverly using fifth generational communications warfare tactics to, rather than send direct messages and direct orders, like we've talked about many times in the past, like the Lois Lerner scandal, you create the zeitgeist, you create the cultural conditions in which your foot soldiers don't need to get orders. They just need to know that if they can do X, then that fits with the plan. And we're talking about people, who are mentally ill and activated, generally with a desire to do violence. And that's why you're seeing activist judges working overtime to try and force Donald Trump to return Trendy Aragua gangsters to America, right? They're not just, you've got activist judges and Democrat senators and congressmen and politicians actively working to prevent Donald Trump from removing dangerous, violent, hostile foreign invaders from our country. Trendy Aragua took over apartment buildings and collected rent from the tenants under threat of death, denying the property owners and the business the revenue that it needs to operate those businesses. Right, and that company got some flack for being slumlords and for having trashy apartments. And look, I mentioned this a little bit yesterday. They were and are still in the business of providing low cost housing to low income families, right? So yeah, there's a kind of slumlord aspect to that. But how do you think those facilities fare when the people that are responsible for the maintenance aren't getting any of the revenue generated through rents because a gang is stealing the money and the police refuse to get involved? The politicians refuse to get involved, right? And to be clear, for the cops out there, for you police officers, that if you happen to stumble across this, if you have a situation like that where a gang has taken control of a building, and you're not going in and enforcing the law in that case, no reasonable person can intelligently say that what you are doing is different than actively enabling the activity. You are the same as if you were personally going in there and robbing these people to steal the rent. Because your job is to enforce the law. Notice I didn't say protect and serve. Supreme Court's been very clear on that. The police have no duty to protect and serve you. That's a fabrication, a falsification. That is a beautiful lie, right? But any time you see the protect and serve logo on a police car, you are being defrauded. So you got the activist judges, you got the weak cops letting it happen. You've got Teslas being firebombed, right? You've got arsonists committing acts of terrorism. Owen Schroyer just got swatted yesterday, and that's either the 20th or the 21st swatting of these conservative personalities. And so you've got arson, you've got attempted murder, you've got terrorism. They are terrorists. And it pains me to say this, right? We've talked about Kamala Harris raising bail money for terrorists during the BLM Summer of Love riots. We've talked about Joe Biden saying these are good people. We've talked about who was it? Pelosi. Well, hell, Anna Kasparian before she got robbed at gunpoint and took the red pill, and a bunch of your AOCs and these kind of guys say, "Oh, we need more of this, more activism. Get in the streets, stay in the streets, do it in the streets." Right? That's who these people are. They're terrorists. And make no mistake, the activists on the ground conducting these activities, they are also terrorists. They're doing it intentionally. And they're essentially the faith militant of the woke cult, right? These are your transgender activists that are flogging the queen naked down the street. They are the faith militant of the woke cult. So let's get into this. Is a Zoom call between some Antifa activists.
Go do sit-ins at the VA to do all of that, because there is going to be no more powerful image ever in this century of veterans getting dragged out of VAs in handcuffs, right? That is going to activate not only veterans, it's going to activate civilians, right? Like,
it's going to activate them, she says.
So
activate them, right? No more powerful image, she says, than veterans getting dragged out of the VA in handcuffs. Right? So understand what they're talking about. These people are discussing putting together protests where they're going to go into the VA. They're going to go into VA facilities and go out of their way to be disruptive until the point that the police remove them in handcuffs. So it's not that they're going to get arrested for being disruptive. It's that their plan is to go and get arrested. Their objective is to get perp walked. Their objective is to get martyred for the cause. So I've talked about this. Tim Pool talks about this often because he did the on-the-ground reporting in in the Occupy Wall Street movement, and the lefties talk about the diversity of tactics. So broadly, here's what happens. You have a community organizer like Barack Obama. He's somebody who gets paid, and he goes and distributes leaflets. They love to hit college campuses. You got a bunch of kids that are young, dumb, and full of cum, don't know a damn thing about the world, don't understand what's going on around them. You throw them a flyer that says we're protesting something. They don't care what you're protesting. They don't care because they grew up steeped in a pop culture that makes the blanket assertion that protesting is good. Y'all, protesting is not good. Guns are not good. It is a tool that has its place. When used correctly, it is very good. A screwdriver is not good, but it's definitely a thing with which you can do good. Right? I can axe murder my way across the United States, but that doesn't make the hatchet evil, because I could sure enough have used that same hatchet to chop firewood out here, which incidentally, for you law enforcement that might be tuning in, I do use my hatchet exclusively for chopping firewood. You know, lately. But that diversity of tactics. So they'll put out the flyers, and then you get a bunch of people who show up that aren't getting paid to be there. Now you bring in the agents provocateur, right? You bring in people like this who are there to get arrested. And more importantly, it's not so much that they want to get arrested. They do. But more importantly, they want these kids, these young, impressionable 19, 20, 21-year-olds to get arrested with them. So you get a group, and they're there to peacefully protest because they've been told in movies and TV shows and news and their lefty communist professors that protesting, blanket, no matter what you're protesting on behalf of, is in itself a good thing. So they show up and it's a great place in their minds to meet some people and virtue signal and say, hey, we're the right kind of people. We should drink and have sex together because we're young and crazy kids. Woo! Right? And then you get a couple of assholes, a couple of agents provocateurs show up, and they throw a brick. They throw a water bottle. They throw a milkshake. They throw a Molotov cocktail. Now all of a sudden, you get the cops come in and try to arrest the one guy that threw something, and some number of the protesters begin to intercede on their behalf. The next thing you know, you've got these kids that showed up because Hollywood and the commie professors told them that protesting is a good thing. And now they're sitting in a jail cell, having theoretically and technically even maybe done nothing wrong, with the agents provocateur, with these pieces of shit. And they get to spill poison in their ears. You see what happens? You see what happens when you try to be free? You try to express your freedom? You were just peacefully protesting and they arrested you. Except bullshit, you weren't just peacefully protesting. That's the thing about people in large groups. And it's not unreasonable. You've got a peaceful protest, one guy throws a Molotov cocktail, and it really is not a long jump to get to a fucking riot. And that's what these guys are looking for. Not the riot. These guys are looking for, they want to be on the news. They want to be on the news because CNN's going to run the headline, Trump arrests veterans. Right? The headline's not going to be sociopath Antifa terrorists attack the VA. because your government cheese media never had an honest bone in their body, they can't make a legitimate statement. Look at the stories with the activist judges, right? It says Donald Trump, the headlines say Donald Trump defies the court. Well, that's a lie. Donald Trump is not defying court orders. Courts, judges are making orders that they don't have the authority for. Right? Veterans, what do you do? What do you do when an officer appointed by the President of the United States to be your superior, right, under whom you serve and have sworn an oath to follow the orders of the officers appointed above me? What do you do when that officer gives you an unlawful order? You don't do it. That's the law. You're only, as a soldier who needs to follow orders, you are only bound to follow those orders which are lawful. And more to the point, you are specifically required. You have a duty to defy unlawful orders. And that can get tricky. It can. Sometimes it's a very fuzzy line between what is a lawful order and what is an unlawful order. You know what's not a fuzzy line? Lower court judges do not have the authority in the Constitution in any way whatever to interfere in the executive conducting foreign policy or military actions. They do not have the authority to issue the orders. So the idea that Trump is defying lawful orders, that's false. That's a lie. There are no lawful orders being issued in this case. And yes, Sergeant Major, I have seen Trump's picture at the VA hospital. I was a little disappointed. It's not the mugshot. That would have. Although I did hear, I haven't seen it yet, but I did hear that Trump has the mugshot framed and hung up in the White House, which is just magic, right? So let's go on with this just a little bit further.
If there's somebody in the comments that knows a civil disobedience teacher, come find me. I am here to organize it. I am here to push it. Yeah, like, let's do it. But we have to be trained, right? Because absolutely. I know when you look back on the...
And I want y'all, okay, this is one I've already watched the video. So I know what she's about to say, and I want y'all to pay real close attention to what she's about to say, because this is indicative of the kind of people these are. You've known these kind of people, right?
The civil rights era, and there's people getting hit with bats. And I live in Jacksonville, Florida. Like I said, we had Axe Handle Sunday, where they like literally beat people with axe handles in downtown Jacksonville, Florida. I currently don't have the skill set or the training for my PTSD not to snap and for me to like get extremely violent very quick. And I know.
Oh, I'm a dangerous monster. I'm a dangerous animal. I'll snap. I'll go crazy on him. That's like when what's her name? Not Joy Reid, the loudmouth woman on The View. Behar said was talking about gun control. Like, well, I mean, I've been around children, and I just the crazies on the right want to arm the teachers. I've been around children. I couldn't be trusted with a gun around a child. I couldn't be trusted with a gun around children because I might hurt children with a gun. Joy, why are we allowing you to walk around free? Like that statement should essentially be an application to MAID. Right? She needs to sign up for MAID services. because that bitch is dirty. Same thing right here, right? Okay, so apparently these guys are all veterans. They went in. But how many people have you talked to who, they'll notice your sticker or come up in conversation? Oh, you're a veteran. You were in the Army. Man, when I was younger, I thought about joining the Army, but it just wasn't for me. I'm not good at following orders, and I would have just snapped and beat the shit out of a drill sergeant. Yeah, I'm sure you would have. I'm sure that's exactly how that would have gone. Yeah, you you would have just lost your temper and suddenly been competent and capable to beat the shit out of a grown ass man who is professionally trained to train people to be professional badasses and is surrounded by other grown ass men who are likewise trained to be professional badasses. And you think you're just going to snap and beat? Okay, no. Right? Just from looking at this chick and listening to the way she talks and her going on about her PTSD and her mental issues, I would bet a paycheck she did not finish her first contract. Right? We had a girl when I was at DLI. We had a chick, Mario. You remember this? You remember this bitch? I don't remember her name, and I wouldn't say her name on the air anyway. But we had this chick, just an absolute nut, just a nut. She was one of the alphabet people. And she attempted suicide. She tried to kill herself. She tried to open up one of her arms with a lady bic. She didn't disassemble the lady bic. She apparently thought that we would believe that she believed that she could just peel her arm off enough to, okay. There's a little more to it than that, but this was a painfully obvious cry for help. And we're talking less than 6 months into her 5-year contract. And thank God, she was put out. And yeah, Dad, I guarantee they're all collective disability. I was explaining to somebody the other day who had not already gotten their VA disability paperwork done. They were saying, yeah, well, I was waiting to see how the election went because Donald Trump, I think he's going to come in and he's going to take care of veterans. I was like, oh, no, you're thinking about this wrong. Donald Trump loves the veterans, but you got to understand, everything I explained earlier about how VA and your disabled veterans benefits and all that, that's not welfare because that's the contract you signed up for, et cetera, except Democrats do think it's welfare. More importantly, they think it's money they can use to buy votes. And if they want to send you money to buy your vote, there's nothing that says you can't take their money and then go vote how the hell you want. Yeah, Savage Lee says they're called safety razors for a reason, as opposed to straight razors. Correct. Yeah, if you want to get the job done, I mean, come on. I shave when I shave, which, as you can probably deduce, has not been for some time. Boar hair brush, bay rum, glycerin soap, right? Straight razor and a hot towel. If you want to get the job done, use the right tools for the job. Oh God, no. The chick I'm talking about, Legion, was at Bravo Company with us. She didn't make it that far. I remember that. Like her and all the zoomies running around with their furry tails. Oh my God. Oh. But yeah, these kind of people, there's no room for these kind of people in the military. I'm crazy. I'll just snap. I believe you. Based on your language and demeanor and the look on your stupid face, I totally accept the premise that you're a deranged sociopath and shouldn't be walking free. Right? Get this bitch to Bedlam. Hell, she said she's in Jacksonville. That's not that far away. We should put her in the Milledgeville Asylum for the Georgia State Hospital for idiots and what is it? The idiots, insane, and damn, I forgot the official name, but it's like the idiots and schizophrenics or something.
I know that about myself, and most of the veteran community would agree. Like, we're all like that, right? So let's get.
No, bitch, we're not all like that. Right? Let me back that up for you guys.
Trained. I currently don't have the skill set or the training for my PTSD not to snap and for me to like get extremely violent very quick. And I know that about myself, and most of the veteran community would agree. Like, we're all like that, right? So
like, we're all like that, right? Like, we're all like that, right? Right? So this bitch is a veteran, clearly a leftist, clearly some kind of alphabet soup garbage, and not the scary alphabet soup, the dangerous alphabet soup, right? So she's some kind of, I'm going to go with L on this one, right? You know, so she packs a box of lunch at apparently a Lady Bick, and she just said, I can't be trusted because of my PTSD. I'm a deranged lunatic. I'll lose my temper and become extremely violent, right? And we're all like that. All veterans are like that. No, bitch. No. Let me clue you in on something, guys. Do you know what a veteran is? A veteran is the old, tired, underfunded version, right? An American military veteran is the old, tired, undersupplied version of the most dangerous fighting force the world has ever known. The closer you get to that, the closer you get going back to when that ETS happened and you left service, the closer a veteran is to the date on that DD 214, the more true the statement is, this is basically just a soldier that the government's not buying ammo for. And I make that point to say this. If she was right, and all of us were deranged lunatics that were prone to engage in extreme acts of violence at the drop of a hat or the slightest provocation, I think we'd have noticed. Right? A professional warfighter that loses their control and engages in acts of extreme violence. Y'all, that's not somebody punching somebody out in the line at Walmart, right? That's not a mass shooter event with 3 casualties. That's not what that is. If she were right, the country would be on fire. But she's not right. Because she's on the left, and they're not right about anything because they're deranged sociopaths. They're terrorists. This Zoom call right here, these 5 people are engaged in a conspiracy to conduct acts of terrorism against the United States government broadly and against the Department of Veterans Affairs specifically. And oh, by the way, they have their names right there on the screen. Right? Hey, Cash. Hey, Cash. Hey, Dan. Get him. Lock him up. What they've just done right here is sufficient. Conspiracy to commit. Name your crime. Lock him up. Legion says I have PTSD from being forced to rely on 42 alphas to take care of my soldiers' issues. Oh, Legion. I was at an S1 one day trying to file some 4187s for a couple of my privates, and I was waiting my turn, and this great big old black master sergeant came in, and big, strong, sharp looking dude. He comes in and he's arguing with the 42 alpha at the desk about how his dependent's pay is getting paid out. And I want to say he had 8 kids, and he was only getting paid for 5 of them. And he's in there arguing with them, and they're arguing back. And then the little 42 alpha walks away. And I said, Sergeant, how many kids you say you have? 8. I said, damn, son, why don't you take some of that BAH and buy you a TV? We had a good chuckle. So, all right. That's the show for today. That's all I've got for this morning. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to go ahead and put a pen in it right there because I'm headed to Stockbridge. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.